Morning sun threw its first golden rays across the vast, shimmering expanse of the Pacific Ocean, painting the waves in shades of brilliant amber and deep sapphire. On the lush, tropical docks of Fantasy Island, the palm trees swayed with a gentle, rhythmic grace as the warm breeze carried the sweet, intoxicating scent of hibiscus and wild orchids. Mr. Rourke stood on the wooden pier, his immaculate white suit glowing under the morning light, his posture reflecting an timeless elegance and a profound understanding of the human heart. Beside him stood his loyal assistant, Lawrence, who looked up with eyes full of bright anticipation. Mr. Rourke turned his gaze toward the approaching vessel, a soft, knowing smile playing upon his lips as he addressed his companion, saying, "Good morning, Lawrence." Lawrence beamed with joy, his small frame radiating enthusiasm as he clapped his hands together and called out to the gathered staff, "Smiles, everyone. Smiles." The warmth of his voice seemed to make the entire island come alive with an even brighter cheer. Lawrence looked at the passenger list and then looked back at his employer, asking with genuine curiosity, "Is that the young lady you were telling me about, Mr. Rourke?" Mr. Rourke nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the ship cut through the gentle waves, and replied, "Yes, Lawrence, that is Miss Fancy Summerfield, who once lived in Sylvan House." Lawrence thought for a moment, his face lighting up with recognition as he recalled the legendary estates of the region, and remarked, "That would be the magnificent chateau on the North Shore, right?" Mr. Rourke sighed softly, a touch of gentle nostalgia gathering in his dark eyes as he shared a piece of his own past, saying, "Yes, Lawrence. Her father and I were very close friends. When he passed away, the chateau was sold and Miss Summerfield went to the mainland to live with relatives. She was in her early teens then." Lawrence smiled warmly, captivated by the beautiful story unfolding before them, and observed, "And now she has come back for Fantasy. How charming. And how romantic." Mr. Rourke folded his hands behind his back, his expression turning thoughtful and protective as he explained the deep emotional currents behind the young lady's arrival, adding, "Miss Summerfield's fantasy is to spend a perfect weekend with the man of her dreams, the man who will truly love her." Lawrence looked at the elegant figure stepping toward the deck, completely charmed by her grace, and remarked, "I should not think a young lady of her obvious charm would have any trouble in that regard, sir." Mr. Rourke let out a small, quiet sigh, knowing that human emotions were far more intricate than they appeared on the surface, and said, "True, but as you well know, Lawrence, sometimes the obvious can be most deceiving." Lawrence adjusted his jacket, turning his attention toward another section of the arriving crowd, where a large banner heralded the beginning of a grand athletic event, and noted, "The women's sports exposition you are hosting this weekend is certainly attracting all the types, is it not, sir?" Mr. Rourke followed his gaze, spotting a confident young man strutting down the gangplank with an air of absolute certainty, and asked with an amused tone, "Oh, if you mean that dashing young man, Mr. Baker?" Lawrence nodded eagerly, confirming, "Yes, Lawrence. He considers himself to be quite a ladies' man." Mr. Rourke shifted his eyes slightly to the left, focusing on the second young man who followed closely behind, looking thoroughly uncomfortable and overwhelmed by the tropical grandeur surrounding them, and remarked, "From the look of his friends, I should not think he harbors the same conceit. Mr. Joe Manning. Yes, a different type altogether. Shy, inhibited. When it comes to women, he totally lacks Mr. Baker's competence." Lawrence chuckled softly, sensing the true purpose of the young mechanic's journey to this magical paradise, and said, "I have a sneaking suspicion he expects you to restore his competence." Mr. Rourke smiled, a look of kind reassurances filling his face as he replied, "Your suspicion is well-founded. Mr. Manning's fantasy is to date for the first time in his life an exceedingly beautiful woman. A 10, as he terms it." Lawrence shook his head slightly, finding the modern rating system rather amusing yet endearing, and whispered, "How prosaic. The man has seen too many movies." Mr. Rourke chuckled, agreeing with a gentle nod, "Or one particular movie too many times." As the passengers gathered on the lush green lawns under the shade of the towering pavilions, Mr. Rourke stepped forward, spreading his arms wide in a gesture of grand hospitality. His powerful, resonant voice washed over the crowd, instilling an immediate sense of wonder and peace, as he announced, "My dear guests, I am Mr. Rourke, your host. Welcome to Fantasy Island." The tropical birds chirped in harmony, and the soft rustle of the palm fronds seemed to echo his warm welcome. Miss Fancy Summerfield stepped away from the crowd, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and deep-seated longing as she walked up to the host. She looked at him with eyes full of bright memories and said, "Mr. Rourke, I cannot tell you how great it is to be back on Fantasy Island. Would you do something very special for me?" Mr. Rourke looked down at her, his eyes filled with the deep affection of an old family friend, and replied, "You know I would be delighted." Fancy took a deep breath, her gaze turning toward the distant green hills where her childhood memories lay buried, and requested, "Take me to see the old chateau." Mr. Rourke hesitated for a brief second, a shadow of concern crossing his features before he smoothly answered, "The current owner is here for the Fantasy Island Wine Tasting Festival, and I am sure he would not object, but—" Fancy noticed the slight hesitation, her eyebrows lifting in curiosity as she interrupted, "But what is the problem? Has he painted the house purple or what?" Mr. Rourke quickly held up his hands, reassuring her with a series of gentle negatives, saying, "Oh, no, 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 no. No, 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 nothing like that. It is just that the owner, Mr. John McDowell, has a rather unsavory reputation. Is the name familiar to you?" Fancy searched her memory, trying to recall if her father had ever mentioned such a person, and murmured, "McDowell? Yes. No." Seeing her confusion, Mr. Rourke offered a gentle alternative, saying, "There is no rush. We can see it tomorrow." Fancy, however, felt an urgent pull toward her past and replied, "Tomorrow may be a busy day." Mr. Rourke checked his pocket watch, calculating the schedule of the weekend, and conceded, "I will take you in, say, 30 minutes. Fancy smiled, pleased with the arrangement, but then her face grew serious as she thought about the golden token in her hand, asking, "All right. But what about my fantasy? What do I have to do?" Mr. Rourke reached into his pocket and produced an antique gold coin, its surface gleaming brilliantly under the tropical sun. He handed it to her, explaining with a calm, legendary tone, "Legend says that if this gold coin is dropped into a fountain, the person who drops it will not only have the object of their love revealed to them, but will also have their most secret wish come true." Fancy looked at the coin, her heart beating faster as she whispered, "I will have my love and most secret wish." Mr. Rourke smiled warmly, assuring her, "Yes." Fancy clutched the coin tightly against her chest, looking directly into his eyes with absolute sincerity, and said, "I will settle for your guarantee on that." Mr. Rourke bowed his head slightly, replying, "You have it, of course." Fancy walked over to the beautiful stone fountain nearby, where clear mountain water cascaded over tiers of smooth rocks. She held the coin over the sparkling water, closed her eyes for a brief moment, and dropped it in. She turned back to Mr. Rourke, her voice trembling slightly with an emotion she could no longer hide, and declared, "All right. I have made my wish. You are the man I want. You always have been. I want you to love me." The words hung in the warm air, heavy with honest devotion. Then, seeing the professional, gentle sorrow in his eyes, she quickly pulled back, her cheeks flushing with sudden embarrassment as she added, "Oh, I am sorry. Forget I said that. Look, after I change my clothes, why don't you come pick me up for that visit to the chateau?" Mr. Rourke maintained his calm, respectful demeanor, bowing gracefully as he replied, "Surely." Meanwhile, in another part of the beautiful resort, Joe Manning was sitting at an outdoor lounge table, nervously tapping his fingers against a glass of water. Mr. Rourke walked over to join him, observing the young mechanic's anxious behavior with a kind, fatherly interest. Mr. Rourke sat down opposite him and inquired, "Surely you have not found getting a date with a woman all that difficult, have you?" Joe let out a self-deprecating laugh, shaking his head as he confessed, "With dogs, I get dates all the time. Bow wows, yeah. But I never get a date with the kind of girl I dream about, you know? Never a 10. Mr. Rourke leaned back, his expression serious yet gentle as he offered a more profound perspective on human relationships, stating, "Well, personally, I am not comfortable with rating women by numbers. It seems so, I do not know, so superficial." Joe rubbed the back of his neck, feeling suddenly foolish under the host's wise gaze, and muttered, "Yeah, I am coming on like some hayseed in heat, right? But I will tell you, boy, just once, I would like to make out with a beautiful chick to prove to Vinny that I can do it, you know? Just once." Mr. Rourke nodded slowly, understanding the social pressure the young man was feeling from his companion, and said, "Vinny? Oh, you mean your friend, Mr. Baker? Yes. Would you care for some coffee?" Joe waved his hand nervously, declining the offer, and replied, "Oh, yeah." Mr. Rourke looked at him.